Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our Tuesday afternoon/night live stream for Week 6 of the 2025 fantasy football season. For over the course of the next couple hours, we're talking all things waiver wire, fantasy football, trade targets. Again, there's a lot of news that is going around the National Football League. Earlier today, of course, many of us are aware Joe Flacco being traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, Jake Browning not able to cut it, throwing 3 interceptions in the first half. That offense looking lackluster to say the very least, and hopefully the reinforcements of one Joe Flacco can settle some fantasy kind of potential for upside as we proceed. But either way, again, I'm sure many of you have questions in regards to some waiver wire pickups. Again, Hassan Haskins should be the guy the majority of us are going after. For those of you who just lost Omarion Hampton. Again, we know that Omarion Hampton at a base minimum is going to miss 4 weeks, could be beyond that. So if you have an opportunity and you have the available fab, the waiver priority, Hassan Haskins should be a pretty solid option. Now, I will say, I do believe that the Chargers offense is going to be very much so pass heavy in the following weeks after losing Hampton. But even with this being the case, a pass heavy Chargers offense leading to even more potential receiving workload and or getting more opportunities to get down near the goal line just does provide a little bit more upside for Haskins that, again, has been not only, the guy that has spelled Hampton, but also a former starting running back for the University of Michigan. He was there with Harbaugh. They have a very clean rapport, and that's only going to continue to expand. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty good live stream. Again, if you guys have any questions, make sure to go ahead and let me know what your scoring format is. Again, that is incredibly important in the grand scheme. The more context you provide, the easier it'll be to answer said questions. Again, be sure to check out Betr. Again, if you guys want to get my rankings every Sunday morning, you can go ahead and do so. Otherwise, of course, there's the Patreon. All right, outside of that, let's go ahead and let's get into answering questions, as I'm sure there are many of us who are very much so chomping at the bit to get into this upcoming waiver period and all the discussion that is to be had. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin with TanFam, who sends it off with the first question of the day. He says, I'm in a half PPR scoring format full of injuries. My running backs are Bucky, Benson, Jalen Warren, Kendre Miller, Justice Hill. Okay. Says, I have 66 fab left. Do I empty the clip on Hassan Haskins? I wouldn't go as far as to empty the clip per se, but obviously he's someone of value. Under the assumption that because of your current situation, you don't have Omarion Hampton, I'm going to assume that the Omarion Hampton manager in your league is probably going to rip upwards of 30 to 35 in order to try to accumulate some value for the next 4 to 5, potentially 6 weeks, depending on how long that injury is going to take. So I would say in your circumstance, considering Benson is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, Kendre Miller is unstartable, Justice Hill is unstartable, and you basically have Bucky Irving, who has an unknown timeline ahead of us. Unless you're going to make an effective trade in an alternative position or even move Bucky Irving for running back help, I think Hassan Haskins over 30 in terms of dollars within your situation should be the minimum, if not potentially even more. Now again, it's very much so dependent on the spending tendencies of the team in your league who has Hampton and how much you'll be able to kind of compete in that circumstance. If you think it's going to require all 60, I don't love it. But in terms of kind of giving your a team a chance to potentially continue to win for the next 4 or 5 weeks instead of having to just play Kendre Miller henceforth, which I don't believe is a viable enough option, I'm fine ripping upwards of 40 in this circumstance, even though, again, it is only for 4 to 5 weeks at most, which I don't love. I probably at that point, it's, actually in leagues that, potentially there's not too much to trade or people in your league are not so keen on trading, you kind of have to rip. So hopefully not all 66, but maybe 35 will get the job done, 33, something of that extent. And thank you. Eric sends in a question. Eric, thank you very much, sir. Greatly appreciate it. Says, I'm in a full PPR, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format. I have Collins, Sutton, DK Metcalf. All right, so you're pretty solid at wide receiver as of right now. Obviously, Collins going on to the bye week here. And, of course, DK coming off. Says at receiver, I have Jake Ferguson and Mason Taylor at my tight ends, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts on the waivers. I have the third waiver. Do I drop Jada Blue for either of them? If you were going to potentially pick up someone, I don't think Kyle Pitts is the target in any sort of capacity in this circumstance, primarily because, again, you have 2 tight ends that are significantly better in terms of long-term value. Jake Ferguson, who is clearing away the number one tight end as of right now. And then Mason Taylor, who's coming off of a week in which he got 12 targets. You don't get 12 targets by accident. So if you're going to pick someone up, you would probably be Calvin Ridley in order to kind of at least give yourself a little bit more depth at the position in case of an upcoming injury. And of course, for the potential which you can play Sutton and DK at wide receiver. And if you don't have a alternative option to play someone at this, potential flex position, Calvin Ridley can fill in that for you going forward, who is coming off of a pretty solid week of 10 targets. Again, only 5 receptions, but the target opportunity is all that we can ask for. So I don't mind it in that circumstance in order to kind of give yourself a little bit of a boost in that circumstance and build some depth there, and maybe even potentially move him after he puts together a couple big performances here. Motivational sends it a question. Thank you very much. Says, I'm dealing with injuries. Questions in the chat. All right, Motivational. Let's see what you have here. Says, yo, I'm 5-0 and I'm dealing with some injuries in a full PPR. I got offered Chubb and Woody for Torrey Horton. Do I make this trade because I don't know which player is playable rest of season? Well, here's the thing. They want to move Chubb and Woody to your team primarily because Joe Mixon is probably going to likely return somewhere between the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that's why they're trying to offload it as of right now, because they're just trying to get as much value as they theoretically can. Your team's consisting of Daniel Jones, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Sutton, CMC, Hampton, Kraft, and Downs. My bench consisting of Rico, Horton, Kendre Miller. I mean, look, in terms of this kind of constructed roster, do you need to make this trade? I think it provides a little bit of, like, I guess in the weeks to come, weeks 7, 8, 9, it could give you a little bit more potential for running back, but you already have like Christian McCaffrey. You're already going to be playing Rico Dowdle this week until the potential return of Chuba Hubbard. And even after Chuba Hubbard returns, you don't run for 200 yards and potentially disappear within an offense. Aaron Jones is eventually going to return. Haskins is obviously going to fill in. I don't think you have to make this trade, because bringing in the 2 players on roster forces you to have to drop one. So if you're okay with potentially dropping somebody else, you could, but I don't know if this is a necessary trade considering your quote-unquote injuries. I think you have enough running back depth in the short term and in the long term to kind of survive, and I don't think there's a it's not a necessity to make a trade of this caliber. If you wanted to, you can. I don't have an issue with it. I just don't think it's necessary to have to bring in extra 2 players, because eventually you may have to drop somebody else. You probably have to drop Josh Downs off of your roster to be able to make a move like this. Otherwise, you drop Kendre Miller, Kamani Vidal, etc. So as of right now, looking at your team, I'm not too worried about it. I think you're in a fine spot. Just got to wait for Hampton to come back, and of course, you have the alternative options to be able to fill in for it. So you're fine. Just don't panic with it. Justin sends it a question. Thank you very much, Justin. I appreciate it. Question at wide receiver 2. Do I start Lab McConkey, Godwin, or Flowers, or even Olave? Also, do you think starting JCM in the flex is the right choice? I mean, in comparison to the rest of the group, regardless of half PPR or full PPR, I do believe that JCM should be a fantastic play. In regards to the alternative options, I'd probably just end up playing Lad McConkey there. Again, they're going to be pretty pass heavy going forward. We saw the same thing last season when J.K. Dobbins went down with his injury. That's when Justin Herbert and the offense really started to expand upon the passing game, and the number of overall attempts really started to grow. Last season, I think it was around week 11 when he went down with the injury against the Ravens. So at that point, it really started to shoot upward. So Lad McConkey going to get himself more workload. JCM in the flex, pretty solid play going into this week, to say the least. Ibrahim, what's up, my man? Says, do I drop Matt Gay for the Colts kicker? Badgley should be decent. I mean, I don't mind that idea. As of right now, I mean, if that's the best available and Eddie Pinheiro is not available, I would say, okay, sure, we can go after Badgley. But as of right now, Eddie Pinheiro, considering he does not have a bye until week 14, is probably the preferred of the kickers, if potentially available. I know he was only rostered in like 4% of leagues. Thoughts on Diggs' rest of the season? I mean, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago during one of these live streams that I was mentioning that Diggs eventually in due time was going to get himself an expansion of workload, and he was going to be really let off the leash because they were kind of ramping him up off of the ACL. And obviously Sunday night kind of demonstrates, I mean, just the last 2 weeks have demonstrated that Diggs is really beginning to get unleashed within the offense. So I'm pretty excited about the potential there. First and foremost, Drake May getting a number 1, a clear and away number 1, but also on top of it, Diggs being incredibly fantasy relevant as of late, coming off of a week with, the most targets amongst all wide receivers are tied in that category, which is very promising. All right, continuing on with a question that came in from, let's see here, Eddie J. We'll get to Eddie J in a second. It is Fernando Mendez who says, what's up, Andrew? What's up, Fernando? How's it going? Pick up Njoku or Mason Taylor in a PPR. That's a really good question. I would like to say both potentially if you can. If you have the opportunity to pick up both, I think you should probably look in that direction. In a perfect world, Njoku is probably the better option because the offense is so heavily predicated on getting the tight end the ball, but he also has competition more readily available there with the other receiving options within the offense. Now, I know that Njoku's the better player. I know that he's performed better in recent history, so he will obviously take like my current bias, and I'll probably lean in his direction. But I mean, seeing Mason Taylor kind of develop into the player that he is developing into, 12 targets again, like I mentioned earlier, is not by accident; it's by design. So ultimately, when I look at the two, I probably will still lean towards Njoku. But if you could try to get both, do it. Thank you. Eddie J sends in a question, says, hey, Andrew, do I use my number one waiver wire on Carter? My other running backs are currently Bucky, White, Scat, Judkins, Chase Brown. No, you don't have to use it on Carter. Michael Carter is only going to be a 4 to 6 week fix, and I don't think you're in desperate need enough to make a trade. Utilizing your number one waiver wire in order to bring him in, unless you're going to pick him up and trade him. I think that would be the only justifiable reason as to why you're picking up Michael Carter. It's to pick him up just to ship him off in order to get back some compensation in the form of a different position. So as of right now, no, I'd probably hold on to your number one waiver. Because again, every week henceforth, Bucky or White are going to play, whoever's healthy, and then Scat and Judkins are easy plays every week, no problem. So I don't really think you need Michael Carter in this circumstance. As for, let's see here, Colts, Patriots, or Green Bay defense, I mean, if you're looking for this week, I'd like to assume that Jake Browning is probably going to get the start. For the Cincinnati Bengals. It will take a lot longer than a week, in my mind, for Joe Flacco to be able to learn an offense. Then again, Baker Mayfield did it in 2 days a couple years ago for the LA Rams. So you never know. But as of this week, I'm still very comfortable with the idea of firing up Green Bay against the Cincinnati defense that has given up over 10 fantasy points in each of the last 3 games to opposing defenses. Outside of that, if you're looking for the long-term value, the Patriots' upcoming schedule, if you haven't checked it out, Eddie, it's really solid. So I don't mind going in that direction if you're looking for long-term value as well. As for Knicks or Daniel Dimes this week, I could justify playing, honestly, as of right now, considering how much usage we're seeing out of Jonathan Taylor within the red zone, it does diminish the potential that, Daniel Jones is potentially going to have going forward. But I don't know. There's an argument that can be made for both sides. Why is my quality of my stream so low on my HUD? I'm actually curious. Hold up. Give me a second, guys. I wonder if it's like that just purely on... Let me do this real quick. Let's go here. Why is it so incredibly low? Or is it just off my playback? It's just off my own playback that it's on 480p. I was going to say... Okay. Apologies. Just wanted to clarify that. I would probably go with Bo Nix as of this week. I'd probably go with Bo in this circumstance. But they're both fantastic options. They'll be relatively closely ranked on Thursday's video. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ahmed Khan sends in a question. Ahmed, thank you very much. Appreciate it, sir. All right, says, my team is JD5, Christian McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, Quinshon Judkins, Trey Benson, CD, Devontae Adams, Sutton, Pearsall, Olave, Addison, Tyler Bourne, Ayuk, and Mixon in a 10-team 2 and 3. Do I trade Judkins and Pearsall for Javonte? No, I wouldn't go as far as that. I mean, you could if you wanted to. I mean, in a 10-team league, bringing in Javonte Williams as well as he's played as of late, there's really not really a question. Let me think here. If you move Pearsall and you have Adams, CD, Sutton, Olave, I mean, yeah, you could. If you wanted to make this trade, I don't mind it. I mean, ultimately, you are making an upgrade in my mind at the running back position, just purely off of the offense itself. The Cowboys is more of a desirable offense to get a piece associated with, considering who is now the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns and where that offense is potentially trending towards. So, yeah, if you wanted to make this move, I don't really have an issue with it because ultimately you have enough wide receiver depth to justify it. So, yeah, if you like the trade, I don't mind it. That sounds good to me. Oni sends in a question. Says, drop Harvey for Franklin or Carter. Oh, sorry. Harvey or Franklin for Carter. Yeah, if you were going to make a drop, it would be probably Franklin for Carter. I don't really want to lose running back depth, especially in the form of Harvey. Says, I have Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet that split and Bucky. Do I trade Dowdle for also trade Dowdle for Diggs or McMillan or hold. No, I would trade Dowdle. I mean, unless there's some sort of information that I'm not privy to as of this moment, and Chuba Hubbard is going to be out for the rest of the season, I would rip this trade for either of these two, whichever one they are willing to kind of give you. Let's go in that direction. I'm happy with it. Honestly, I'd probably just take Diggs at this point because I trust that quarterback and that offense a little bit more than the alternative of the Carolina Panthers. So as of right now, I lean towards, yeah, I'll take Diggs. I don't mind that for Dowdle. I mean, again, I wouldn't expect Dowdle to play more than one more, if not two more weeks max. And even once Chuba Hubbard returns, sure, Dowdle may still have some relevant value there, but not enough to where I would justify not taking this trade at the moment. So yeah, I'm cool with that. Franklin for Carter, Dowdle for Diggs. Between Vidal and Haskins, I would rather play Haskins. Again, just to kind of reiterate what I mentioned on yesterday's waiver wire episode and earlier today when I was talking about my top 36 running backs going into the given week. After Hampton's injury, 8 of the next 9 snaps belonged to Hassan Haskins. Again, he was with his team last year, and he was preferred in terms of, especially late in the season, in terms of rushing attempts comparatively. And then additionally, on top of it, if we're talking about just the recency kind of bias that we have in regards to the two, when we look at this most recent game, as soon as the starters were pulled for the Los Angeles Chargers and garbage time was being had with Trey Lance, Vidal was out there. It wasn't Haskins. So they've already pre-established based on the usage of these running backs as to how they're going to go. They're tipping their hand almost, just in the same way in which we saw it with, Demercado and Michael Carter. And it's different because, Michael Carter was brought up off of or was elevated from the practice squad because of the injuries that took place to the alternative backs. And you can technically... what's the wordage I'm trying to say? It's almost the same situation for both of these backs because they are both practice squad guys. But ultimately, based on the tendencies of what we have seen, I think it's justifiable that Hassan Haskins should be, the primary priority player that we're aiming for in this circumstance. Let me see here. I wanted to actually fully check this out. Where is this? Here it is. Okay, so this is what I wanted to actually do in specific. Yeah, okay, cool, perfect. All right, continuing on. After Oni's question, we had Eric, who says the following. Eric says, drop Goddard or Godwin for Taylor. Depends. I mean, I think I'd have to look at the rest of your roster. Let me see if you have any other questions in here. I don't know what the rest of your team looks like. It says I have... yeah, I don't know what the rest of your team looks like, Eric. If I was gonna theoretically make a swap, it's not like I'm ignoring Goddard. He's coming off a week of 9 targets. If you're gonna move Godwin, I don't know. It depends on how much wide receiver depth you have. I'd honestly rather have 2 tight ends on roster rather than the extra wide receiver that I'm never gonna play. So I guess it's just a matter of you determining whether Goddard's your number 2. If he is your number 2 and you have another primary one, let's say you have Ferguson, I don't mind making the swap in this circumstance, even though Goddard's been great all season. But yeah, if Godwin never looks like he's going to play in your lineup, then again, you don't have to keep him there and you can just go get the tight end. LZ7 sends out a question, says PPR claim Bill or Hassan from waiver. It's not even close, it's Bill. Hassan is a 4-week fix. Bill is going to be the starting running back of the Washington Commanders every week for the remainder of the season. It was evident. He started the game. He had not started a single game for the entirety of the season as the primary number 1 back on the first play of the game. And additionally, on top of it, we didn't see very much of, obviously we saw a couple spurts of Chris Rodriguez and a lot of kind of third down utilization out of Jeremy McNichols because he's the primary kind of pass blocking threat, but ultimately it's Bill. I mean, Bill should be a top 20 running back rest of the season. He should be, ultimately. John sends out a question. Says trade Mahomes, Chuba, and Rico for JD and Brees. Yeah, I don't mind that. I think JD is probably the better option in comparison to Mahomes once that knee brace starts to kind of, he gets used to it at least. But Brees Hall versus Chuba/Rico, yeah, I don't mind taking Brees Hall there. I would prefer him over the bunch. That works. Thank you. Eddie J says, I forgot to mention that Haskins is available. Eddie, let me go back up to your question. I'll let you know what I'm thinking here in regards to the potential here. Eddie J says, number 1 waiver on... Yeah, I wouldn't even use it on Haskins. Again, you don't need either of those 2 running backs. So unless you're going to utilize it in order to flip it in a trade, I would prefer Carter over Haskins, just to kind of clarify that. Carter has more weeks of upcoming kind of service because Trey Benson is a 4 to 6 week recovery of the arthroscopic knee surgery. to which if you were going to claim one, it would theoretically be Michael Carter and not Haskins in this circumstance. But I don't think you need either of them unless you're going to flip it in a trade to a team that is running back needy in your league. Christian sends in a question. So I got offered Dowdle for Odunze. No, I'd rather have a Odunze rest season. Again, unless I'm missing something about Chuba. I mean, yeah. Let me, just to confirm, just want to confirm this. Because the volume of questions you guys are asking regarding Dowdle is making me doubt what the heck is going on here. The latest report on Chuba Hubbard came out on October 6th, which was yesterday, and Dave Canales said he's quote-unquote day-to-day this week. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I would never give a Odunze for that. It's a waste. You'd be giving up a potential 15-point per week wide receiver for a backup running back, theoretically speaking. Mean the Bush sends in a question. Thank you very much, Mean. Appreciate it. Says PPR top priority, claim Hassan Haskins or... Okay, well, it depends, right? Your top priority on the waiver should kind of revolve around what your team is needing. If you need running back help for the next 4 weeks, that's where you go. If you need wide receiver help for the next couple weeks, Calvin Ridley could be that answer. But I will let you know, Calvin Ridley thus far this season has done absolutely squat. Yes, he's coming off of a solid week, but the upcoming schedule isn't the nicest. I mean, yes, he has the Raiders this week, so he could be relevant here. Then you can ship him off in the next week off of a trade. But then he has to take on Christian Gonzalez of the Patriots. Then he has to take on, Cam Bynum in the Indianapolis Colts. You have the Chargers secondary. Then you have Derek Stingley. And then, of course, you have Tariq Woolen the next week after that. The upcoming schedule is not pretty for Calvin Ridley. So if you're going to pick up either of these two players, you're pretty much just working it off of team priority of upcoming bye weeks, injuries, and or the insight to flip Calvin Ridley after this week or flip Hassan Haskins before the week even begins. So unless you're making a potential trade, I don't really think you need either unless, again, you are dealing with injuries. Mo Money sends out a question, says, I'm 2-3 in a 10-team PPR, double wide receiver, double flex format. What's the most I should give up for Barkley or JK? I have Mayfields Judkins, AK RJ, Travion Haskins, Amon-Ra, JSN Rome, BTJ, Worthy Kelsey. I mean, as of right now, I think Rome Odunze has almost equivalent value to J.K. Dobbins based on weekly contributions. Obviously, Rome Odunze has a higher ceiling considering the full PPR format. So even that, in my mind, I think is giving up too much. But I think it's a justifiable potential kind of trade there. I mean, shoot, even Rome Odunze for Barkley thus far this season, considering Barkley has done absolutely he's been a shell of himself in terms of production-wise. So... that theoretically could be a path in which you could explore if you were going after one of those two. But the issue is when you're trading for a Barkley or J.K. Dobbins, they're often going to want a running back in return. So unless you're going to send like Rome and Alvin Kamara for, Barkley and a lesser wide receiver or J.K. in a lesser wide receiver, or a kind of equal value to whatever Alvin Kamara presents, unless you're going to make a 2-for-2, 1-for-1s would just basically be Rome for either of those two guys, as long as I can see. I mean, if they want to give you JK for BTJ, that sounds like a deal. If they want to give you that for Worthy, that's a deal. Shoot, if they need quarterback and they want to take Fields off your hands and you could put together something to where you're giving them Kamara and Fields for JK and another piece off their team, that could also be a way that, you explore this. Thank you, Mo Money. Luke C sends in a question. Luke, thank you very much. I appreciate it, my man. All right, Luke, let's see what you have here. It says, I'm in a PPR. Number 1, rank long-term stash. Mixon, Brian Robinson, Corum, Kendre, Haskins, Tracy, and Ray Davis. Ray Davis is last place. I'm not interested. After him is Corum. I'm not interested. Then after him, we have Tyrone Tracy. Then we have Brian Robinson. Then we'll go with Kendre Miller. Then we'll go with Haskins. Then we'll go with Mixon. That's the order from worst to best. Again, I'll go it over again. So let's flip the order. My number 1 in this circumstance will be Mixon, then Haskins, then Kendre, then Brian Robinson, then Tracy, then Corum, then Davis. Cool. Dropping Juwan for Mason Taylor. Perfect. Sounds good to me. Or Njoku or Barner. Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, look, again, if If you're going to take one, I probably just take the leap of faith with Njoku. But again, I would try to get both if you can on roster, if you have the ability to kind of expand upon it. You have Kittle already, so you don't need both. But yeah, put in one for Njoku. If you're not able to get him, go after Mason Taylor second. Thank you. Nathan Salazar sends in a question. Thank you, Nathan. I appreciate it. Says Hurts and Montgomery for Javonte Williams and Bo Nix in a full PPR. Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, ultimately, it's just a matter of what you have on roster. It says my team consists of Chase Brown, Breece Hall, Gibbs, Montgomery. Wide receivers are like Buka, Lamb, Rice, Ridley, Nico. Yeah, you got a really strong team here. Ultimately, you're just trying to get an upgrade at running back, to which I think this services you a pretty substantial upgrade considering what Javonte is accomplishing on a weekly basis. And I think Bo Nix's overall schedule is going to kind of ease out a little bit in comparison to where it was to begin the season. So I don't mind the trade ultimately because the opportunity to start Gibbs, Javonte, Egbuka, Lamb, and Rice, later on in the season with McBride, I don't even care who's playing quarterback at that point. You're going to just, you're going to be in a fantastic position at that point. So yeah, I'll take it. Drake May sends in a question. What a name, huh? Says Egbuka and Etienne for Bucky Irving and Devontae Adams. I'm currently 3-2 record. Jacobs and Judkins at my running back, Puka, Amon-Ra, and Rice at wide receiver. So you're going to ship off Egbuka and Etienne for Bucky and Devontae. I mean, man, Egbuka is just so good. I don't know if I want to ship him off. You're basically just making this trade to bring in Bucky Irving. That's really all you're doing. To which, at this point, I think you should just keep. I don't think there's a necessity to have to make a move of this caliber. If you want to make it, go for it. But the Bucky Irving kind of like sketchiness of what his injury kind of revolves around, and then the potential of like the organization realizing, oh, maybe we've put too much on the plate of Bucky Irving, and if we continue to give him 25 touches a game, he's going to break down continuously, and then we're going to need to utilize Rachaad White more going forward. I think that is potentially a risk that I'm not willing to kind of go after, so I'll just keep Egbuka and Etienne going forward as for now. Luke C sends in a question, says PPR current running backs are Jacobs, Carter, Sharps, and Spears. Wide receivers are Ladd, Sutton, Myers, Diggs, and JMO. Drop/keep Isaiah Davis for Juwan Jennings, Mooney, Mixon, Haskins at the flex. I mean, considering your running back depth as it currently stands, I don't mind the idea of potentially picking up Haskins because I know that Michael Carter has an upcoming bye week. Let me see here. NFL bye weeks. I'm just trying to like put a little bit of forethought into the potential of upcoming bye weeks here. So we know that the Arizona Cardinals have a bye in week 8. And then additionally, so do the Seattle Seahawks. So when that week comes along, you're going to need an RB2 that's probably not Tyjae Spears because we don't know what kind of a workload of opportunity he's going to have by that point. So in order to kind of fill in for the week 8 bye-apocalypse that you're going to be dealing with both Carter and Sharps, I think Haskins probably provides the most recent or like kind of short-term semblance of value to your team. Outside of that, I would like to go pick up Mixon. So if there's an opportunity to potentially pick up Mixon and immediately stash him onto your IR and also get Haskins, go for it. But I think if you're looking for short-term value, Haskins is the guy. If you're looking for the long-term play, it's Mixon. Otherwise, don't think you need either of these wide receivers considering what you have on roster as it stands. Thank you, Luke. Appreciate it. Rogo says, I'm 12-team, half PPR, 1-4 currently. We've got Daniels, Jacoby Myers, McConkey, Gibbs, DeMarcado, Bannon, Shaheed, Ryland. Okay, this is the team as it stands. Brenton Strange needs to be dropped. Adunze coming up off of that. We have Kittle, Trey Benson. What am I doing? Number 1 wants Swift. Pacheco trade. I'm so confused. They want to give you... Yeah, no, I'm not interested in... Wait, hold on, wait. They want a Swift Pacheco trade. So if they want Swift and Pacheco, they can have him. Just give you a running back in return. That's it. Otherwise, you need to keep Swift because DeMarcado can't start. At least going forward, you'll have Daniels, you'll have Adunze, you'll have McConkey, you'll have Gibbs, you'll have Swift, Kittle eventually. Like your team is solid once healthy, but again, I think your priority right now, you're dropping Brenton Strange. You're picking up any of the tight ends that I mentioned on Monday's waiver wire video. So Mason Taylor, Theo Johnson, AJ Barner. If Darren Waller's somehow still available after scoring 2 tutties in his first game, I'd be surprised. But if he is, he should be the number 1 priority there at tight end. So that's number 1. Brenton Strange has got to be moved. Then after that, everything is pretty solid in terms of the current structure of your team. If somebody wants to take Pacheco and Swift off your hands, tell them to give you a running back and keep it moving. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Continuing on with some of these questions that are coming through. Again, for those of you who are just joining us on this wonderful evening, again, we're answering any and all fantasy football questions. But again, I'm claiming priority to those of you who send in super chats. I greatly appreciate you guys sending those through. Samaj, thank you very much. Let's see here. Channel activity. Says, my full PPR team is comprised of Stafford, Christian McCaffrey, Montgomery, JSN, Garrett Wilson, Njoku, Henry, Debo, and Pinheiro. Bench is consisting of T. Johnson, Michael Carter, Charbonnet, Fannin, Daniel Jones, Bo Nix, Jameson, Williams, and Pearsall. I'm worried about Henry and Garrett Wilson against, I'm assuming that's Surtain this week because they play against Denver. Any advice on the starters? I wouldn't worry about it. Fire them up. As of right now, Derrick Henry is an issue, and I 100% can see that. And I would probably rather play, looking at it, do I rather play somebody else? As it stands, I'd rather play McCaffrey and Montgomery over him. Then I would play JSN, Garrett Wilson, and Debo Samuel in my flex. Then I'm playing, probably Njoku as my tight end, Stafford as my quarterback, and that's it. I wouldn't go ahead and, I'd bench Derrick Henry in comparison to the alternative options. If you have a second flexible player, then at that point, sure, we can play Derrick Henry, or we just fire up Pearsall, depending on what his health looks like this week. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. We had a question. RMT, half PPR, 14-team league. Justin Jefferson, Egbuka, Sutton, Rice, Kyron, Kamara, Daniel Jones, Nix, Ertz, Woody, DJ Moore, Reed, drop Ertz for Mason Taylor. Yeah, that's a fantastic move. As for the rest of your team, in a 14-team league, you're pretty solid in terms of wide receiver depth, to say the very least. Running back depth is obviously your biggest concern because Kamara has kind of been a shell of his normal self. But if you're able to address the tight end positional need and upgrade that, you still have Daniel Jones and Nix, who are both top 10 quarterbacks potentially weekly going forward. Closer to 9 and 10 or maybe even 11, but nonetheless, still fantastic options. As long as you're able to potentially go about it in terms of picking up Mason Taylor, improving that tight end position with dropping Ertz, and then maybe once, in fact, Rice does return, you could look to potentially move one of these two options. Specifically, I mean, it just depends on when we get there, what someone is interested in with your league. Once that occurs, I think that'll be the time in which you can, from week 7 and beyond, once Rice proves himself, that is the moment in which you could potentially go to try to make moves for another running back. Until then, if you were going to theoretically make a move, you would have to ship off Rice because nothing else is worth kind of shipping in the moment. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Neil Decker says, who would you prefer, Worthy or Rice on the Chiefs? Yeah, I prefer Rice. It's not even remotely close. Worthy still dealing with injuries, whether it is his shoulder or whether it is his ankle that, again, was bothering him yesterday. Rashee Rice is healthy, fully ready to go. And, prior to his injury last season, was making a historic rise within this offense. And he'll only continue to, potentially pick up from where he left off last season in his return. So, yeah, expect him to potentially ball out because, again, his progress this summer, they were saying that he was ready to play week 1 if it wasn't for the fact that, of course, he was suspended. So it's not a matter of injury. It's just a matter of he's ready to go and they'll unleash him. So Rice is the preferred for sure. Tony Lopez, what's up, my man? Says in a full PPR, start 2 wide receivers only league. Okay. I'm in a 4-1 situation. Got offered Jacoby Golden for my JSN and Christian Kirk. Interesting question. Okay. Do you accept? Okay. So with the return, or not with the return, with the addition of Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals offense, the question is, what does Jamar Chase's value in turn look like going forward now that you have an actual hopefully, fingers crossed, an actually serviceable quarterback henceforth? To which, I would be hard pressed to believe that there was a possibility where Joe Flacco could come in and not service a number 1 receiver. But this season has exactly been that. That's what scares me. Like, Jerry Jeudy has done nothing. And Jerry Jeudy finished as a top 12 wide receiver last season. So is it Joe Flacco? Is it Jerry Jeudy that's the problem? Like, what is the actual issue within that overall situation? And then additionally, like, we know last season, we talked about it this offseason in specific, Joe Flacco last year, when he was the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, was able to help Pittman, Downs, and Pierce all average over 11 fantasy points per game throughout a 6-game span in a half PPR. So ultimately, we know that Jamar Chase is going to improve in comparison to where he has been. Obviously, this most recent week was great with Browning, but he'll improve in comparison to not having those really dud performances. So honestly, I'd probably take the deal. Give me Jamar, give me Jacoby, and I'll just run with that going forward, especially considering I think Jacoby's only going to improve because Bowers' injury doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. So I'll take it. I don't mind that. Again, there's a lot of risk inherently there, but I don't mind the idea of it. If you're comfortable with you have and you don't want to take the risk, again, I don't blame you because JSN obviously is him and he's dominating. Fixed Lane sends in a question. Says I drafted Connor and Benson. My running backs are now Bijan and Sharps. My wide receivers are Adams, Tet, and Diggs. With God on and Mooney on the bench. I think you meant probably Godwin. With Godwin and Mooney on the bench, what do I do? I'm 2-3. I mean, as of right now, you probably just hit the waivers, try to get Hassan Haskins if you possibly can, in order to try to give yourself a little bit of extra depth at running back, especially considering you have a Charbonnet bye week in week 8. So Haskins will definitely be needed to kind of upgrade there. I'm sad to see that you didn't, potentially get Michael Carter last week, but hopefully in the future you could potentially kind of improve at, within the realm of running back. Are you going to make a trade in order to improve them? I don't think you should, especially if you're playing in a full PPR. I'd rather just start 3 of these every week until either of these 2 on your bench can wake up. If not, again, you're going to just have to improve via waiver wire. I don't think we're going about shipping off Bijan Robinson unless someone gives you a deal that you truly cannot, decline. Meme sends in a follow-up, says PPR drop Hawkinson for Mason Taylor, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, or Theo Johnson. Yeah, I would drop him for Mason Taylor in a heartbeat. Thank you. Alex Songrass sends in a question. Says I'm 2-3. I lost Neighbors, Evans, Bucky in my Superflex league. I have Allen, Fields, Dak at quarterback. Wow, you're stacked. There's got to be someone in your league that wants one quarterback, right? Trade Allen for May and JSN. Yeah, I'll take that. I honestly don't mind that in terms of the grand scheme. You're getting back a very solid quarterback and an incredible wide receiver. So yeah, in this circumstance, I don't mind it. I think Fields and Dak can suffice. And of course, Drake May is just as good. I understand that his most recent week wasn't the greatest considering he didn't have a passing touchdown, but I think he has proven enough thus far this season to where he can be a solidified third. And then, of course, you're improving wide receiver greatly with JSN, being brought in. So yeah, I'll take that deal. I don't mind that, Alex. As long as it's not a 6-point per passing touchdown league, I'll take it. If it's 4, we're good. Neil sends in a question. Says, should I drop Juwan Johnson or Ertz for Mason Taylor? Honestly, I'm willing to drop them both. I think Juwan Johnson, I think it's becoming very evident that he's not getting enough looks in the recent weeks. Additionally, on top of it, Zach Ertz getting a goose egg is very much so a surprise, but I think both of them are worth being dropped in order to pick up Mason Taylor and maybe even another tight end beyond that. Let's see here. And I also want to specifically mention the Jets do have a week 9 bye. So again, having that extra tight end on roster for a couple weeks may give you a little bit of opportunity to kind of test them out, field them out, and then maybe end up having an alternative option for the week 9 bye, of Mason Taylor, one that comes along. Airbender sends in a question. What's up, Airbender? Thank you very much. Okay, it says in a full PPR, I've got Daniels, Hall, Scat, Chase, Adunze, Waddle, okay, Njoku, Etienne, McConkey, Chase Brown. I got offered Addison and Pollard for Chase Brown. Is it worth it now? I know Chase hasn't been good, but they get Flacco. Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, looking at your wide receiver depth consisting of Jamar Chase, Adunze, Waddle, McConkey. I don't technically think you need another wide receiver in the form of Addison, considering those 4 wide receivers you have, Jamar Chase, Adunze, Waddle, and McConkey, I prefer all over Addison. So I don't think you need to make this trade. I'd rather have Chase over Pollard the rest of the season, especially with the Flacco potential boost that he is going to give the offense. I'm willing to hold for now, considering we've suffered this long, Airbender. Thank you. Easy E says, hi, Andrew. Thanks for the help. No problem. Let's see what we can help with. Says, would you rather have Diggs or Metcalf the rest of the season? I think it's a really viable question. I'm curious as to see what you guys think, because in my current kind of thought process, I think it depends on scoring format. If we're talking about a full PPR, I think Diggs has a higher likelihood of being the more valuable prospect in comparison to a half, in which I think Metcalf, the big playmaking ability, the touchdown upside that he has already presented to have thus far this season, having scored 3 touchdowns in 4 games, I think Metcalf is probably the preferred in a half, Diggs in a full, just based on the fact that, again, Metcalf is not going to be a guy that comes away with 9-10 receptions in a game. It's not impossible for him to do so, but based on how this offense is constructed thus far and the sample size that we've been given, we're not to believe anything else than, potentially 5 or maybe let's say 4 to 7 catches a week on average. So for now, I'd probably distribute as such. Diggs in a full, Metcalf in a half. And then also it says Aaron Jones or Mixon. If I was going to pick up one or the other, I'd honestly rather get a piece of the potential pie of what Mixon can provide, genuinely. Because I don't think Jordan Mason's disappearing once Aaron Jones comes back. I think Aaron Jones pretty much just kind of picks up where Xavier Scott or some of these other running backs, Cam Akers is going to be leaving off. So I'd rather just take the risk of Mixon and see what I can get of that. Thank you. All right, Louis sends in a question. Says, number one waiver wire, Waller or hold, I have Fannin and Kittle. I mean, ultimately, here's my thought process, Luis. In the event in which Waller continues to be as great as he is, again, the last time we saw Waller in the National Football League was with the New York Giants. It was a very lackluster offense with a kind of rotation of Daniel Jones getting injured, then Tyrod Taylor, and then we had some late antics. It just wasn't a beautiful picture there. But Waller, when healthy with the Vegas Raiders, I mean, he was consistently a top 12 tight end. So now that you put him in an offense that wants to prioritize and utilize and highlight the tight end position, I think by dropping Fannin for him, it gives you the opportunity to potentially even start him rest of season, and then also maybe even ship off Kittle if people aren't interested in Waller, and you can maybe hold him rest of the way. But in the event in which he is as valuable as he is presented and he can continue to present, I think it's worth it, because again, the ad that he provides to your team makes it to where you may be able to even start him and Kittle in the same week, one at tight end and one in the flex. So I don't mind ripping it, but that's just kind of how I like to play fantasy. I mean, I think when I look at a player of this caliber, I think, wow, he's going to get himself upwards of 7 targets a game, because that's how this tight end position is kind of being exposed to as of late. He's only just ramping up. He's only just building rapport. It's only going to get better in my mind as we proceed. Then it sends in a question. It says, I'm 3-2. Thoughts on my team and any trades that you would try to make? We have Josh Allen, Bryce Young. We have Achane, Chase Brown, Tedero, McMillan, Adunze, Darren Waller, Michael Carter, Aaron Rodgers. So we're playing in a 2 QB league, I'm assuming. Okay. Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman, Pure Salt, Devontae Smith, Goddard, Jalen Warren, and Toe Burrow on the IR. Okay, looking at the team as a whole, is there any trades that I would try to make? Obviously, I want to improve on QB2. Bryce Young and Aaron Rodgers, not the greatest, but I mean, you could theoretically go and pick up Joe Flacco here in this opportunity, in which maybe you have enough fab or have a higher enough priority pick to maybe drop Keon Coleman in order to get him, because I would assume that is your least valuable prospect on roster. Outside of that, I mean, I like this team. You have Achane, which is always going to be good. You have Adunze, which is always going to be good. You have Carter to kind of fill into that RB2 until Flacco takes over, and then Chase Brown's value increases. And Jalen Warren's a fantastic option. Like, unless you're going to go out at a 3-2 record, maybe try to go and pick on teams that are dealing with a bunch of injuries, go after the Omarion Hampton manager, go after the Bucky Irving manager, and try to send some relief running back help in order to get those guys in return and hold on to them. Unless you're going to make trades like that, again, going after a CeeDee Lamb, going after a Mike Evans, going after a Rashee Rice for kind of help later down the line. Unless you're going to make those kind of moves, I think I'm holding because I like the way that this roster is constructed. Now, in the event in which you could also buy low on potential prospects, such as a Lamar Jackson, maybe sending a 2 quarterback for 1 situation could work. Bryce Young, Aaron Rodgers, maybe send 3. Who knows? That's a possibility. AJ Brown, I think, is still a buy low that I'm looking for on a consistent basis. Those are the things that I'll suggest for now. Caden sends in a question, says, should I drop Hall or Hubbard for JCM in a full PPR? You leave Hubbard on the out list, but if you have to drop one, I mean, at this point, I'm not dropping Hall. I'll tell you that much. If you're playing in a small enough league to where you can just freely drop players like Hubbard, and there's no other alternative options, then yeah, that's the drop. Andy sends in a question. Thank you very much, Andy. I appreciate it, my man. Says, thanks for talking me out of starting Woody over Debo. Jalen Warren got dropped, and I dropped Woody for him. Beautiful. Fantastic move. Another note, Diggs over Quentin Johnston rest of season. No, I wouldn't go as far as to say that. I think Quentin Johnston still has a lot of value going forward. He's demonstrated from weeks 1 through 4 that he's an elite number 1 of the offense. Unfortunately, fumbled this most recent week, but I think going forward in a better matchup, in a kind of more variable, like heavy passing offense where everyone's going to be able to feast going forward without a running game, or not as confident of a running game with the offensive line issues, with the with the downgrade of running back talent. I'm still sticking with Quentin Johnston there. All right, Death to Ming sends in a question, says, guy in my league is trying to trade me Amon-Ra because he has injuries. Okay, that's fine by me. He wants a running back and a wide receiver of mine in return. My running backs are JT, Kyron, ETN, and Bill. Okay. My wide receivers are Sutton, Waddle, and Ladd. He wants Sutton and ETN. No, I'm okay. Just keep it as is, brother. You don't need to send all that. Again, the fact of the matter is, like, you've got incredible value, but what you're giving and what you're getting in return, I don't know if it's a comparable kind of exchange. Like, in this circumstance, you're losing some pretty significant depth in order to just bring in a singular starter, to which I feel like you could be starting ETN and Sutton every week, to which if you're starting, like, let's say you're playing in a double running back, double wide receiver, one flex format, I could justify a move like this because you can only play so many of these studs that you have, and you have 7 of them, and you can only theoretically start 5 a week. But in the event in which you're playing in a double flex or a triple wide receiver, I don't make that move. I don't think it's worth it at that point, because I'd rather have the greater talent contributing to my efforts on a weekly basis rather than kind of hamstringing myself because I want the better player that may not be able to kind of fill in for the double, the double contributions of ETN and Sutton being as great as they've been thus far. So if he wants Ladd and he wants Bill, then that works. If he wants Ladd and ETN, that works as well. But I'm not willing to move Sutton or Waddle in that circumstance. I think Ladd would have to be the guy that probably takes the axe here. Otherwise, I probably keep it as is. Thank you. Dwayne Wells sends in a question. Says, in a half PPR, I need a running back help. Okay. My wide receivers are the following. My running backs are the following. League mates, a deeper running back. Who do I offer? Okay, so if you're looking to potentially get running backs, you're targeting Judkins, Hall, or Dobbins, and this is your current iteration of your roster. I mean, ultimately, if you're trying to get running backs in return, with Mike Evans being out on injury, Pearsall being injured, Ridley being a no-show for majority of the season, and Nico Collins on a potential bye week here, unless he's willing to take an injured receiver or one that has been lackluster as of late, I would assume they probably want Quentin Johnston, to which you could end up making a move of this caliber to where you send a Quentin Johnston, but that would basically be it, because I don't think they want Evans, Pearsall, or Ridley. So they're going to want Quentin Johnston or Nico Collins, to which I would tell you not to move Nico Collins, and I would say send a Johnston trade and see what, if they'll be willing to give one of these in return. And if they can, then sounds good, but otherwise, I don't think I'm moving Nico in this circumstance. If they want to take Evans and Ridley, or Ridley and Pearsall for one, I could justify that. But again, it does also hurt your wide receiver depth for the future with upcoming bye weeks and injuries that could do you a little bit of harm in the upcoming weeks here. So yeah, if Quentin Johnston's of interest to them, then we can make that move. All right, we had a question that came in from Kaiser, who says, happy cake and candles day. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. All right, let's see what we have here. It says, I'm 1-4 in a 10-team full PPR. We have Mahomes, we have CD, we have BTJ, Higgins, Javonte Williams, Pickens, Sutton. I mean, you got a really strong team, man. Once CD Lamb comes back, like, my goodness, once T. Higgins gets the bump of Joe Flacco, sheesh, you have Dowdle, Ridley, Pearsall, Waller, Judkins, and Fields. My goodness, your team is stacked. Any trades? I mean, yeah, if I'm you, I'm trying to move Fields. Not to say that he's going to diminish value, but like, someone in your league has to be wanting a quarterback that is capable of scoring 25 plus points per week. And I doubt that there's anybody out there that is not interested in that. So ultimately, it says I'm like trading away Pickens for another piece for something. I mean, again, if somebody wants, you have to go find someone in your league that needs quarterback. I think that's in the first and foremost, we need to try to go ahead and accomplish that. After which, if you can find a team in your league that, yes, wants Pickens, because eventually you're going to have CD back, but if somebody wants Pickens, who's played incredibly, what has he scored a touchdown in 4 of the last 5? If somebody wants Pickens in another piece, they're going to have to send you back like a legit top tier option. Like if you're sending away Pickens and Fields, someone better be sending me back, JSN at that point. So you can explore it that way. But for right now, you've got such a really good team. I'm just trying to move Fields first. In the event in which that's not possible, at this point, you have to go for the big honchos. You have to go for the big guns. Try to go after legitimately a team that is dealing with tragic injuries, and like go after the Justin Jeffersons of the world. Go after the top tier running backs. Go see what the McCaffrey guy wants. Like, genuinely. You could potentially pull off a trade where you're sending Judkins and Sutton if he's in trouble, and you can get it in return. Maybe even also throw Dowdle on top of it. But you're stacked in a 10-team league. Go after the big guns. That's it. That's my primary suggestion. And make sure Fields goes out first. Wyatt, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Wyatt, do me a favor, type in your question. If you don't have one, no problem. I appreciate the super chat and the support. Christian K sends in a question, says, rank the following in a full PPR flex plays for just this week. We have Henderson, Myers, Hunter Henry, JCM, Jennings, and Shakir. Okay, so under the assumption that Jennings is healthy and playing this week, the order currently would be JCM, number 1. That's Shakori Krosky-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill. Number 2, I would go with Jacoby Myers. Number 3, I would probably go with Shakir. Number 4, I would go with Hunter Henry. Number 5 would be Jennings. Number 6 would be Hendo. I could potentially move Hunter Henry up. They do take on the New Orleans Saints. I haven't really looked at the matchup in specific to see what the Saints have allowed to opposing tight ends. Off the top of my head, I know that Theo Johnson just scored 2 touchdowns this most recent week. The week before that, Dalton Kincaid scored a touchdown. So maybe it is JCM, Myers, Henry, Shakir, Jennings, Hendo. Maybe that's the order. Let me see here. New Orleans against opposing tight ends thus far this season. Yeah, they also allowed a touchdown to Luke Farrell in week 2. So, I mean, there's a lot of potential for opportunity there. But in this most recent week, they just got battered by Bellinger and Theo Johnson. So, I'd even go as far to say maybe even Hunter Henry's number 2 behind JCM. But for now, I'll just be conservative with it. I'll take JCM, Myers, Henry, Shakir, Jennings, Hendo. Thanks, Christian. I appreciate it, my man. Sean K sends out a question. Says, can you rank these defenses for this week? Green Bay, Indy, Denver, and Pittsburgh. Honestly, I think I'm probably taking Pittsburgh number 1. Yeah, because I think there's a chance that Jake Browning pulls some garbage time again. So I'm probably going Pittsburgh number 1 in hopes that Dylan Gabriel gets picked apart. Then I'll probably go with, do I want to play Denver against the Jets? I think there's a lot of garbage time to be had there as well, to which it scares me. That's the thing. I'm trying not to play against like quarterbacks that can do some damage. So I'll probably go Pittsburgh 1, I go Green Bay 2, I'll go Denver 3, and I'll go Indianapolis 4. That's the order in which I would go about it, Sean. Thank you. Andrew Mitchell sends in a question. Says, in a non-PPR, Diggs, Pickens, Tedderole, McMillan, I need 2 game script concerns. Tedderole, McMillan taking on the Cowboys, I think I have to take it. I have to play him. So I'll take these 2. Like, anytime I have an opportunity of playing a wide receiver that is getting healthy opportunity against the best wide receiver matchup of the week in a negative game script, like, I feel like I have to play him. I have to. So I'll take both these receivers there in a non-PPR. Tom L says, grab off waivers, Tracy or Michael Carter. It's not even a question. It's Michael Carter. Tyrone Tracy is not going to get his job back. He's effectively lost it due to the unfortunate injury, just in the same way in which Devin Singletary lost his job to Tyrone Tracy last year. Tracy has lost his job to Scat. That battering ram is not going anywhere. So Michael Carter is the more valuable one of going into the future. Thank you. Spencer James, what's up, Spencer? Hope you're doing well, my man. Spencer says the following. Says, I'm 2-3 in a full PPR. I traded Stafford, Dowdle, and Godwin for Alvin Kamara and Rashee Rice. Thoughts? I have Dak. I have Herbert. Yeah. Just off of that alone, knowing that you have quarterback stability, I think it's a fantastic trade. No questions about it. If you guys have the opportunity to move Rico Dowdle right now for the values that I am seeing many of you kind of equate him to, if you're able to move him in a trade in this capacity, I would absolutely, without a fucking doubt in my mind, make that move. He is going to be in a rotation going forward, even after the return of Chuba. So at best, and no, we've seen the best of Rico. That's it. He's not getting back to that role. He's not getting back to that yardage count. So that's a fantastic trade, Spencer. All right, we had a question that came in. Let's go ahead and let's continue on to Johnny Kilroy. Johnny says, if Dowdle starts, do I play him over Judkins versus Pittsburgh? Yeah, I would say absolutely. Again, earlier today, I did end up posting my top 36 running back rankings. Just to kind of reiterate, let me go and find it real quick. Let me put it back on the desktop here, just so that we're all on the same page. That video was posted. Let me go ahead and let me make sure that this is potentially here. Let's do this. So these are my top 36 running backs for this week. Obviously, they're subject to change. By the time we get to Sunday morning's rankings, something's going to change here. Injuries, more news, anything like that is going to be exposed to it. But again, variably speaking, as of a Tuesday going into week 6, this is where I currently have it structured. To which I have Rico Dowdle as my number 14 under the assumption that Chuba Hubbard is out, and Quinshon Judkins as my number 16 going into the given week. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to play Rico against Dallas, I think it's a fantastic opportunity. So yeah, why not? Okay, continuing on. David Morgan sends in a question. Thank you very much, David. I appreciate it, my man. David says, in a full PPR, should I trade St. Brown for Adams and Henry? I think it just depends. I mean, ultimately, once Lamar does come back, Henry's going to be of a significantly higher value point, to which you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm glad I made this trade. But ultimately, it's a matter of like, can you survive until Lamar's return? Because we have to kind of put it into perspective. So this week, Lamar's for sure not going to play, because the next week after week 7, they have a bye. So they're going to have Lamar try to return in week 8, to which the question then becomes, can you survive week 6, 7, and 8? Can you survive week 6 and 7 with a watered down version of Henry, and also Henry missing outright? And then can you even survive in the potential which maybe Lamar isn't ready by week 8 and he only returns by week 9? If you can survive and the record is not going to be in shambles, you're not going to be, stacking up L's because you lost the value here, then sure. Otherwise, if you are in jeopardy, I don't make a move that at that point to put myself into a greater risk if I'm at a potential 1-4, 2-3 record and I'm not in a stable position to make a trade of this caliber. Otherwise, I would. David Diaz sends in a question. Says, in a full PPR 12-man, I'm 1-4. I just traded Jacobs for Chase Brown and Tedderolo McMillan. Rest of my team is Dobbins, Harvey, White, Dowdle, McBride, Lamb, and Olave. Thoughts? I mean, I'm hoping that, for your case, I'm hoping that Tedderolo McMillan henceforth is just an unstoppable force. Obviously, you needed the wide receiver help, and that's why you made a trade of this caliber, because you needed someone to pair up with Olave because of Lamb's absence. So you shipped off Jacobs to accomplish that. Hopefully, in the meanwhile, considering you have White and Dowdle and Dobbins, and eventually once they are gone, Chase Brown will be back to being his normal self with Joe Flacco. I think that this trade can end up panning out well for you, and I'm going to hope that it does, in the form of Tedderolo McMillan playing far beyond his current means. And of course, same thing with Chase Brown. So I respect the investment. It's risky, but I can see the vision, and hopefully it pans out in your direction, David. Andrew Mitchell says, in a full PPR, I have Kincaid and Fannin. Do I drop one for Njoku? Yeah, at this point, I'm willing to drop Fannin to get Njoku. I'd also, in a full PPR, maybe I even want Mason Taylor in a full. For now, I'd probably just swap it for Njoku. Mason Taylor, in my mind, I'm probably going to have ranked in my top 12 rest of season, and I'll probably do the same thing with Njoku until otherwise kind of proven wrong with Dylan Gabriel and his kind of, his fervor to just not shoot the ball down the field. He's really just a safe quarterback trying not to lose the job. He's not really trying to push the ball down the field, which just means more targets for Njoku coming off of a game of 9. Luke C says, please check the chat. Send a question when you read. Thanks. All right, let's see here. What's your question? I thought I answered one of your questions earlier. Okay, question 1, you said to drop Isaiah Davis for Haskins, but should I drop Spears for Coker or JMO for Mixon? I think it depends on running back depth. It says Jacobs, Carter, Charbonnet, Spears. Okay, so under the assumption you're getting Haskins, I think at that point I'd be more willing to drop Spears and see what JMO or Coker can do in the meanwhile. So yeah, I would drop Spears for Mixon, and I would drop Isaiah Davis for Haskins. Yeah, that works for me, Luke. Thank you. I apologize for not clarifying that earlier. I do realize that I wasn't able to clarify that. All right, questions in the chat. Since I got offered Dowdle for Dunze, we took care of that. Where obviously we want a Dunze going forward for sure. As for what do I do with Chase Brown at this point, I have James Cook, Derrick Henry, and JCM. You hold on to him because ultimately you have suffered this long with him in your lineup. I think it would be a little bit premature to move him now. Now, if you could sell him under the guise of like, hey, Joe Flacco's going to elevate him. He's going to go back to being his 25 touches per game and an incredible 18-plus point contributor every week. Get ready. If you can sell him under the guise of that, then I would do that. And I would try to sell him as high as you possibly can. Otherwise, you wait and you hold on to him. You're starting James Cook at JCM this week, and you just let him kind of cook for the next couple weeks. And once Joe Flacco's in the mix and he potentially provides some value to Chase Brown, the running game, the passing attack, I think at that point he would just be a starter on your team going forward. Otherwise, you can ship him off in a potential trade as well. All right, let's hear Maze Space says, Trade Judkins for Devontae Adams. Full chat. Okay, full team is in the chat. Let's see what you have here. Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Keenan Allen, Jacoby Myers. We have DJ Moore, T. Higgins, Bijan Robinson, Quishon Judkins, Jalen Moore, and Jamar. Okay. So here's my thought process on the matter, okay? So I think having Quinshon Judkins is actually kind of considering your wide receiver depth, okay? I don't love the wide receivers you have on roster, but I can admit, like, AJ Brown is going to get better. T. Higgins is going to get better. DJ Moore has played at his ultimate low. Myers in the last 2 weeks has been ultimate low. Keenan Allen in the last 2 weeks has been kind of underwhelming. I feel like all these wide receivers have potential room to improve. While when I look at running back, like, what scares me is like, okay, Rico and Michael Carter are not long-term players. They're short-term. To which then you only have 4 long-term running backs, to which one requires a pressure cooker for Joe Flacco to step in. And even if that might not even work. And then Jaylen Warren is going to be splitting the backfield potentially in the upcoming future. So by losing Judkins, you're really leaving it up to, one of these two has to be able to carry the workload going forward. To which I'm okay with it, but I don't love it. So I'm okay making the potential play at this. I would rather try to see if I can ship off Rico and Carter to the managers who have Dowdle and Benson to see if I can get some value in return at wide receiver at that point. But if not, I'm okay with the trade just because I do believe that Devontae Adams is a top 15 guy rest of the season. And in a PPR, he obviously has the advantage in comparison to someone like Judkins. So I can understand the trade, but I don't think it's necessary per se. Caleb Rio says, should I trade Kamara for Hubbard? That's a really good question. If you have Rico Dowdle, I could justify it, but I genuinely think, like, after putting up a 200-yard rushing game, I can't be, I mean, Rico Dowdle's not going anywhere. Like, he's still going to be in the mix. He's already the preferred goal line back, and that was before Hubbard's injury. So if you wanted to make this trade, you have to understand that you're going to get a shell of what Hubbard was in the past in return, to which I'd rather just probably bank on Kamara getting traded rather than making this trade. Anthony C says, what do I do with Woody Marks? You hold him on your bench. I mean, ultimately, that's it. It looks like based on game script, based on the news from Mixon earlier today, it looks like he's eventually going to kind of fade out into the obscurity of what the waiver wire probably has. So you hold on to him. You hope that he can put together a couple big weeks here until the return of Mixon. But yeah, it's not looking great considering, again, he's coming off such a huge week in week 4, only to kind of just be forgotten in week 5. Anonymous sends out a question. Says, in a half PPR, can you rank Theo, Barner, Fannin, Bond, Haskins, Juwan? Juwan is my tight end. Yeah, look, as of right now, I would rank Haskins number 1 under the assumption that you're in need of a running back. But even if you're not, I feel like he will garner more trade value than the alternatives. But it would go Haskins number 1. It would go Theo 2. It would probably end up going, honestly, based on Barner's touchdown upside, I'll go Barner 3, Fannin 4, and Bond 5. Thank you, Anonymous. Big Spole says, trade Gibbs for Jonathan Taylor and start JCM or Ricky in the flex. Okay, so first and foremost, JCM is my flex. Am I trading Gibbs for JT? Any day of the week. Without a doubt in my mind. Give me JT. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Sup, Drew? I'm currently 0-5. My running backs are Bijan, Kyron, Judkins, Woody, Carter. Okay. Wide receivers are Rice, Tet, Golden, Bond, and Luther. Would you trade for Jamar Chase? If so, who would you offer? I would be willing to trade for Jamar Chase. Let me just confirm their bye week isn't anytime soon. They have a week 10 bye, so you can survive. We got to obviously flip the script here in terms of your record. Under the assumption that you are trading for Jamar Chase, I would like to imagine that the team in which you are trading with is going to need a wide receiver in return. And the wide receiver that I would feel most comfortable moving at the moment that they would probably want is either Rice or Ted Earl McMillan, because honestly, they're not going to want either. They're going to need one of the two. You might end up getting more value out of Rice in this circumstance because of the commodity that he is. So if you move both, let's say you move Rice, you're going to also have to give an actual running back. You're going to have to give Rice and Judkins, to which in my mind, if you're going to move those two players, I think it doesn't do you any service once you get to week 7 and Rice is back. So if I'm in your position, I probably just hold. I mean, unless they want to take something less than Rice and Judkins, if they want to take Carter and Tet or, Rice and Carter and Woody, if they're willing to take your scraps for Jamar Chase, then you make the deal. Otherwise, in this circumstance, giving away Judkins and Rice based on what they're going to be able to contribute for you, because ultimately, like, Judkins Rice, in my mind, with the potential of Carter eventually disappearing, Woody's not a viable starter anymore. Like, you've got your three. This is your two running backs and your flex for the rest of the season, and these are your two wide receivers rest of the season. If you get rid of two of those five players for just one, you are putting yourself in an incredibly vulnerable position. And sure, you'll have Carter for the meanwhile, but then we still have to figure out what we're doing at, the rest of wide receiver once those bye weeks come along, once injuries start to impact. I don't know. I feel like if they're willing to take scraps, go for it. If they want like a Rice, Judkins, Judkins, it's a steep ask for a 0-5 team that needs all the depth that they can, potentially have on roster. All right, catching up slowly but surely. We have a question from Ibrahim. Says, thoughts on Scat versus the Eagles? Does Tracy hurt him? No, I don't think Tracy's going to do anything. Again, Tracy is a former wide receiver turned running back, and he's going to contribute in the receiving game, but ultimately Scat's upside is purely based on can he fall into the end zone. And the Eagles have done enough thus far this season and have demonstrated enough to where they're not the greatest run-stop defense that they were last season. So I'm not too worried about it. Fix Lane says, drop Moon or Godwin for Taysom, both on bench. No, as of right now, Taysom Hill's pretty much playing quarterback. So unless they come out and they say, hey, Taysom's our starting quarterback, I'm not really too interested in it. So I'd rather just keep both of these alternatives. Thank you. RJ sends out a question, says, love or Knicks? If we're talking about this week in specific, taking on that Cincinnati Bengals defense seems like a cakewalk in my mind. So I kind of want to lean in that direction, but it's always sketchy because anytime we talk about the potential of like, oh, is Jordan Love going to get himself some upside? Any given week, we could see, we can find Josh Jacobs coming into the mix and stealing value there. So considering Bo Nix has arguably a better matchup against the Jets defense, rushing upside, for now, I'll lean towards Nix. But, I mean, they're going to probably be like, Nix is going to be like my number 10 quarterback this week, and Love's probably going to be 12. Something like that. Off the top of my head. Cowboys 995 or 955. Sorry about that. Thank you very much, Cowboy. Says, would you trade Dallas Goedert for Michael Carter? If you're in need of running back help, yeah. Because think about it this way. Dallas Goedert, yes, he does provide a lot of value right now for fantasy purposes, and he's been great thus far this season. But there's so much incredible depth at tight end on the waivers in the form of someone like Mason Taylor, or maybe somebody dropped in Njoku, to which you can go pick, or Darren Waller, or there's a potential in which Theo Johnson's out there. There are some viable enough options out in the kind of waiver conversation to where if you need running back depth, I'm okay making a move of this caliber. Gerardo says, please see the chat. I just typed about defenses. Okay, sounds good. Says, hi Andrew, I have Arizona, Jets, and 49ers. These are the availables. We have the Colts, Raiders, Cowboys, Tampa, and the Saints. Who do I stream in and who do I drop? Who has value beyond this week as well? I'd have to actually look at the full schedules to really understand what we're looking at in this circumstance. But in terms of this week, I like the idea of the Raiders versus the Titans. I'm not really too interested in playing Arizona, so I would drop them in order to pick up the Raiders. Additionally, I mean, there could be an argument for the Cowboys defense being a decent streaming option under the assumption that we do find some sort of disaster situation where Bryce Young is not able to accumulate garbage time, which I would doubt that to be the case. The Saints defense, I don't think they have very much value against New England. So ultimately, then it becomes a matter of the Jets or the Colts. Yeah, so if I'm in your position, I would like to go and pick up the Colts and the Raiders defense, and I would subsequently drop the Arizona Cardinals and the Jets. That's how I would go about it, because I like the 49ers in terms of their rest of season schedule. Thank you. Appreciate it, Gerardo. All right, we continue on with a question that comes in from Antonio, who says, in a full PPR, trading away St. Brown for Chase and Judkins. Yeah, if you can get Chase and Judkins, as in Jamar Chase and Quentin Sean Judkins for St. Brown, you make that deal 10 times out of 10. Out of principle, you have to make that deal. Thank you. Really quickly, my YouTube chat just froze, so I'm going to go ahead and respawn that really quickly. It just, it's going back to the lobby right now, and I'm going to have it respawn in just a second. And then we can kind of readjust it onto the screen in just a moment. Thank you guys for being patient with me. How do we feel about Tua versus the Chargers? I mean, I'd assume it's a negative game script, so he's going to have to throw for majority of the game. And quite frankly, I like the way that the offense looked on Sunday, so I don't mind it. Obviously, the fact that they didn't throw the ball to Darren Waller more than 5 times after the first half kind of scares the shit out of me, but I think they'll be okay. It's not a guy that I like to start unless I'm looking for a QB2 in a 2 QB league, Jeremy Melendez says, I'm 4-1 and I'm in first place in a 12-team full PPR double flex format. Do I trade Devontae Smith and J.K. Dobbins for Chase Brown and BTJ? Out of principle, I would. I genuinely would. I don't like the way that BTJ is being utilized, and I don't like how Chase Brown has played thus far this season. But just off of what I perceive to be their potential values for the rest of the year, I probably make the trade. Is it a little bit risky? Absolutely. It has all the risk entailed in it. So if you wanted to just play it safe and just kind of continue to ride out with what you have, because as of right now, J.K. Dobbins is the top 12 running back. So trading away for Chase Brown, you are absolutely asking for risk. And moving Devontae Smith, who's going to have the Giants in 2 of the next 3 games, for BTJ, who has really just done, nothing thus far, there's all the risk involved. We would only just be banking on the idea that these players have talent and soon enough they would somehow find value, but there's nothing that says that they have to. They could just continue to be average for the rest of the year. They could. But I would like to assume, based on what I've seen from these players last season, that they should be able to outvalue what JK and Devontae Smith provide. So I would. Spencer says, there was more than the question. Thank you. Okay, Spencer, let's see what you had here, brother. What was more to the question? Let's see here. So you have Dak and Herbert. Okay. What was more to it? It says, trade one of my wide receivers for Alvin Kamara and Alvin Kamara for a running back upgrade. I mean, looking at your wide receivers, right? You have CeeDee Lamb, Tedder McMillan, Quentin Johnston, Rice, Mooney. I mean, theoretically speaking, if you had the ability to... Do I want to move Alvin? I mean, look, you have Bucky, A.K. Benson, RJ Harvey, Hunt. Okay. So if you're able to move Alvin Kamara and a wide receiver and get a huge RB upgrade, yes, I would. But again, it's going to be tough. Because at this point, with CD out, I'm not trying to... I mean, I would like to wait for CD and Rice to return, to which you're probably having to ship Quentin Johnston or Tedero McMillan, which should actually get you some decent value in return. So if you can move 2 of those, one of those 2 wide receivers alongside of AK and go get an upgraded running back, a significant one, someone that's in that kind of top 8 conversation, specifically speaking, if we're talking about value in which we can get in return, there's no way anybody's giving you Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey. There's no one that's giving you Bijan, Jacobs, Genty. But in the event in which you can somehow scoop up a Javonte Williams, that's always a conversation. Maybe scoop up a James Cook after his kind of lackluster performance. You could theoretically go about accomplishing it that way. You may be able to buy low on a Saquon in this circumstance. But that's kind of the upgrade that I would look for. If I'm giving up a player of Quentin Johnston's caliber plus an Alvin Kamara, I want to get something at the top of the cream of the crop. That's what I want. So if I was giving Tedero McMillan and Alvin Kamara to just get Quinshon Judkins, I wouldn't be as happy. And I probably wouldn't even make that kind of a move in this circumstance. All right, continuing on. We had a question that came in from... Okay, we took care of all those. We move on to Neil, who says, how much fab do I spend on Mason Taylor? I have 76 left. I think it truly depends on what you have at tight end right now. Says, should I drop Ertz? Okay, yeah. So considering these are your 2 tight ends, I would be willing, with 76 left, under the assumption that you had 100 in total this season, I would be willing to spend upwards of maybe 12%, maybe 15%. That's how confident I am in Mason Taylor the rest of the season, to which if you believe that there are other teams in your league that are also going to be fighting for tight end, I'd be willing to rip 15 for him. That's how confident I am in terms of his rest of season value, because not only does he belong to an offense in which he is the number 2 receiving option, in which he does have Justin Fields, who has supported a tight end 1 in back-to-back seasons 2022, 2023, but his offensive coordinator is the former passing game coordinator of the Detroit Lions. And the Detroit Lions, over the course of the last 3 consecutive seasons, have been top 3 each of those 3 years in terms of tight end total touchdowns scored. So Mason Taylor, rest of the season, fantastic value. I'm willing to rip 15, if not more, if you think the competition is high on it, based on what people bid for. What did people bid for Waller in your league? Whatever that is, you might have to jack it up from there. Jay Nice, what's up? Andrew, I'm 4-1. Any changes? What does it say? Teams on Patreon? Okay, let me see what I got from you on Patreon, and we can go ahead and we can adjust there. Freddie sends in a question. Freddie, let me see if you typed anything in the live chat, my man. Says Discord, please. Okay, let me open my phone. Find your Discord question, my man. One moment, please. All right, let's see if I can find Jay Nice as well. All right, Jay Nice, let's see what your question was. Jay Nice, what's up, my man? Says, Drew, any changes I need to make? I have Dart, Egbuka, Puka, Rico, Michael Carter, Jalen Warren, Wanda Robinson, Matt Prater, Detroit's defense, Hubbard, Lamar, Pearsall, Swift, Mixon, 12-team PPR. In terms of moves you need to theoretically make, I mean, when you have Egbuka and Puka Nacua, you're in a really solid position. But in terms of running back depth, once Carter and Rico's value, kind of dissolves in due time, you still have Hubbard and Swift, and then hopefully Mixon returning. So I'm not too worried about running back, not worried about wide receiver. Jackson Dart's obviously still in question, to which you have Lamar obviously eventually returning. You have Tyler Warren. I'm not really making any moves. I'm not panicking if I'm in your position. You're 4-1. You're in the top. You're in a top tier position. You just need to get healthy, and once you are, I think you'll be fine. I'm not too worried about your situation there, Jay Nice. I think you're in a solid position in comparison to a lot of the other teams that we've talked to about today. Ghost says, I have the number one waiver. I'm a Chargers fan. So you know what? Yeah, I have to do a running back conversation. Okay, do you have Omarion Hampton on this team? You don't have Hampton. Okay. Says running backs are on roster. Is it wise to go number one with Haskins? Also, Bucky manager asked for my Adams thoughts. I mean, in the event in which he wants your Devontae Adams and he's willing to give you Bucky Irving, then you take the deal. Otherwise, don't have to. In this circumstance, looking at the running back depth you have on roster with Swift, Michael Carter, Trey Benson, Chase Brown, Rashad White, Rico Dowdle, I would say considering you have a lot of dissolving pieces, you could go for it, but ultimately you have Carter, Rashad White, and Dowdle, who are all going to dissolve in due time. And Haskins is going to as well. So I don't, unless you're going to make trades to where you're shipping off Carter, Dowdle, and White, and you're going to rely upon Haskins, which I wouldn't suggest you doing. I don't think it's worth ripping the number one waiver unless you're going to utilize Haskins as trade priority or leverage. Thank you. Isaac Smith sends in a question. Thank you very much, Isaac. I appreciate it, my man. Says in a 12-team full PPR scoring format, double flex league, trade Egbuka, Tetaroa, Hunter Henry for Amon-Ra. No, I'm okay. I don't think it's necessary. Says I have Cook, Judkins, Chase Brown, Merritt, Lamb, Rice, Quentin Johnston. Okay. Looking at the team, your depth is pretty crazy. I will say that. I will admit to it. You have some insane depth to which you can afford to make this trade. Ah, man. You can make the trade. That's fine. It's fine. Typically, in many of leagues, this trade would be crazy. That's why my initial response is no. Because why the heck would I move 2 starting wide receivers and a starting tight end for 1 player? To which, when I look at your team, you will have Lamb, Amon-Ra, and Rice, and then Quentin Johnston just kind of chilling around on top of Cook, Judkins, that, again, is not even being touched here. And you have the best tight end outside of Ferguson. So, yeah, you can make this trade. I don't have an issue with it. I think Egbuka could probably be – I mean, I don't think he's going to eclipse the value of Amon-Ra, especially once Mike Evans comes back. But, yeah, I think it's an okay trade. That's fine. Just purely based on what you have. Other teams won't be able to pull this off, though. Auntie Slayer says, full PPR, my Hubbard and Saquon to the Chuba Hubbard. My Hubbard and Saquon to Chuba owner for JT. You mean Dowdle, right? Let me just make sure that's what you meant. You must have meant Dowdle. So your Dowdle and Saquon to the Chuba manager for JT. To which I would say, sure. I don't have an issue with that. Give me JT rest of the season. Thank you. Gerardo sends in a question, says, would you trade Christian McCaffrey for Brees and Achane? Says, my team is Olave, Pittman, and DK, James Cook, based on the fact that I have CMC, Dowdle, and Marks only. My question just pretty much revolves around, well, no, yeah, look, just based on what you currently have on roster, I think it's worth the trade. But I will say, it feels like Christian McCaffrey could, on a weekly basis in a full PPR, outscore both Achane and Brees Hall combined. But in the grand scheme, considering you're not going to have an RB2 here in the not so distant future, actually you will. You have James Cook. I'm actually curious. 1 second, please. Let's see here. I'm curious if Christian McCaffrey in a full PPR is outproducing both of them combined on a weekly basis. Let me just see here. McCaffrey this season, 23, 22, 24, 26, 27. No, he's not going to outproduce both of them. To which, at this point, if theoretically you would start Achane, Brees, and James Cook every week, And then also just kind of roll with these two as your primary 1-2 option, and then use Olave for depth and flexible option once bye weeks come along. I'm okay with the trade. I don't love it because I don't like giving away Christian McCaffrey, considering the biblical run that he's on right now. But I think it is the correct decision to make based on the value that you are actually getting in return. Bassa B sends in a question. 12-team standard. How's my team? We have Herbert, Rico, Demo, Bucky, Carter, Jalen Warren, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Golden, Horton. We got to get a better wide receiver 3 and 4. We got to. Horton is fine, but Golden's just scaring the crap out of me because, of course, Christian Watson's returning soon. Says I need to flex with 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and I have concerns at wide receiver. Yeah, I also have concerns at wide receiver, primarily because you have to start Horton every week with CeeDee Lamb out. But once CeeDee Lamb returns, like, these 2 will be your starters. And then we'll just have to make some moves here. Like, Rico Dowdle's going to dissolve, and so is Carter. So at least you do have Jalen Warren, Demo, and Bucky, which will be your 2 running backs and your flex. Herbert's fine. I mean, I'm not making any moves here, though. I will tell you that objectively. I'm not making moves. I'm holding it as such and just hoping that Horton can continue to provide some value there as a startable option until CeeDee Lamb returns, hopefully in week 7, if not week 8. Let me look. When do the Cowboys have a bye week? Just so it doesn't. They have a week 10 bye, so he'll be back before then. It's not really much of a concern there. Solid team. Just gotta get healthy and you'll be fine. Game script concerns for Pickens versus Carolina and Diggs versus New Orleans. I don't really have any concerns with Pickens because I know he's going to score a touchdown before he leaves. So not really too much of a concern there. Ultimately, Pickens is an auto start. He's going to be my top 6 tomorrow. So keep him rolling, my man. Bryce Lawson. I have Laporta and Goddard. Should I drop one for Njoku or Mason? Taylor. I mean, look, as of right now, based on what we've seen from the contributions of Laporta as of late, again, he had the best matchup he could possibly ask for. Anybody who is a tight end playing against Cincinnati is just an auto start. So expect for, specifically this week, expect for Tucker Kraft to go absolutely fucking nuclear. But in the case of Goddard this season, like, this last week, he finished as tight end 15, which is great. The week before, tight end 1. Then he was tight end 7. I'd feel sick to drop him. Like, I feel like he's done enough this season, putting up 9.4, 9.8, 17.7 in the last 3 weeks. To be dropping him seems like a cardinal sin. To be getting back Njoku in exchange, I think there could be an argument to be made, but I think I just hold. I don't think it's necessary. You could make the swap, though. But if Goddard's healthy, man, he's just so solid. It's just tough to swap away from him. If you wanted to play matchups, like, I guess you could. But no, I think I just hold. I don't think you need to. All right, Big Smoke 727 says in the Superflex, I need help in my RB and wide receivers. We have London, Ladd, Adunze, Hollywood, Pearsall, JCM, Gainwell, Marks, then Mercado, RJ. Okay, yeah. So you need running back help. You don't really need wide receiver help because you're kind of solid there with London, Ladd, and Adunze every week rest of the season, and Pearsall can kind of fill in when need be. Says quarterbacks are Daniel Dimes, Stroud, and Hurts. So, okay, you're great at quarterback then. I think you're in a really solid position going forward here, and you don't really want to trade one of these quarterbacks unless you're going to get a quarterback in return, and you want to keep them while you still have the opportunity to play them for the upcoming bye weeks here as like a fill-in. So in regards to what we are doing for your running back help, I would say that we're probably looking to potentially move. I mean, ultimately, JCM's your starter. Marks has no value. DeMercado has no value. RJ Harvey is probably your RB2 this week alongside of either Gainwell. Yeah. In this position, I'm waiting for Pearsall to probably get healthy, pop off, then I'm shipping him for a running back, and I'd probably pair him up with one of these guys, if like maybe RJ Harvey and Pearsall to the J.K. Dobbins manager for an RB in return. I think something like that could be of potential expansion, but you kind of have to wait. Otherwise, shipping off a running back just for one is probably going to be an unlikely and unrealistic reality as we proceed here, Big Smoke. So probably looking for Pearsall to get healthy, put together some weeks. Or you could theoretically go after Joe Flacco and ship off Stroud in a trade in which you're sending Stroud and Pearsall to try to get a running back help. That could also be a potential option. Or maybe just Stroud by himself. Just depends on what teams in your league are struggling. Sean Chopin sends in a question, says, what do I do with Kincaid? You keep him, man. He plays well. The guy just continues to play well. There's no reason to move him. Already have Warren, and I want to ship him. Oh, okay. So in the case of which you have Warren, yeah, you can ship him. see my roster previously in the chat. Unfortunately, it's not loading, as you can tell, just off of the display right here. So it would have to be like recently typed in. Otherwise, I really can't check it out. But as of right now, yeah, ship him off. But again, there's so many incredible tight end options off of waivers in the last couple of weeks here with Waller, Mason Taylor, maybe David Njoku was dropped, Theo Johnson, AJ Barner's playing well. With so many potential kind of viable options out there, it's tough to potentially move Kincaid, especially when someone just had like, oh, they may have had Laporta the last couple of weeks, but just because of the recency bias of him putting up 17 points, they may not be as interested. So if you can ship him, move him. If not, I mean, you have got a great backup just in case. Emily Doyle says, drop Downs for Hassan Haskins. I have Hampton. Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. Make that swap, Emily. Thank you. Alrighty, we're continuing to catch up slowly but surely. We had a question from Isaac Smith who says, more info. I'm currently 1-4, third in points for, number 1 in points against. I'm in 9th place. Brother, that is rough. Okay, so considering, damn, that team is 1-4? Brother, holy crap. Okay, so here's the issue that I currently have with a trade of this capacity, to which, okay, you know what? You'll be able to turn it around. Once you get Lamb and Rice back, brother, you're going to fucking torch the league. Yeah, I'm okay. The trade's fine. It does kind of weaken your ability to win this week because you lose depth there, but I still think in the grand scheme, you can kind of rip probably a 6-game winning streak once they're back and kind of take over the league. So I'm not too worried about it. Michael sends in a question, says, drop Ertz for Mason Taylor. Oh, okay, really quickly. Yes, I would make this drop. Drop Dowdle for Miller. No, just keep Dowdle because you can start him this week. By the way, I would just like everyone to know, just so you guys potentially can explore upon this reality in maybe future seasons or maybe even this season. I don't know. It depends if it's too late. A rule that potentially you guys should implore. Let's say you play in a 12-team league, okay? Let's say 8 teams make the playoffs. Maybe you guys are, maybe 6 teams, doesn't matter. I always believe that the final potential, the final playoff position, the 6th or the 8th seed, depending on what format you play in, should always belong to the team in the bottom half of the league with the most points scored. I don't give a shit about record because record on a one-on-one basis is irrelevant. It should purely just revolve around who actually has the best team and who deserves to be there, regardless of the bullshit schedule that was put together. So in the future, guys, in your leagues, try to suggest that your commissioner potentially involves a league rule now that in a 12-team league, 6 teams make the playoffs, 6th place specifically belongs to, out of the bottom 7 teams, who has the most points for, because that truly determines, who deserves the spot, because you actually had the best team and it wasn't a matter of schedule that determined your, potential for success. Omar the Grouch says, drop Jameson or Godwin. I mean, I don't mind dropping either. I'm not going to be talking about either. I probably won't talk about Jameson tomorrow. That's for sure. Also, I have Debo, Evans, Terry McLaurin, Keenan Allen, Jacoby Myers. I mean, I'd like to keep them both. If you're going to drop them, it depends on what you're getting in return. To which I don't think there are probably, in a 10-team league, there's a chance that there are better receivers on the waivers, but I'd probably doubt it. I'd probably just hold on to them for now. Fernando Perez says, keep playing Mark Andrews or drop for Mason Taylor. I would drop him. Just move on. Jay sends in a question, says, pick 3, Diggs, Higgins, Jacoby, Ridley, DJ Moore, Wanda Robinson, half PPR. Diggs, Higgins, Jacoby Myers, Ridley, DJ Moore, Wanda Robinson. Okay, for this week, Diggs is probably going to play. Jacoby's going to play. And I probably end up rolling like T. Higgins. These are probably the 3 that I roll. I'll think about Ridley, but for right now, I'm not too interested in it. Also, Ertz or Andrews in a full PPR, neither. Go pick up a tight end off the waivers. If you had to play one, it's Ertz. And then lastly, which Chargers running back do we go after? I'd go after Hassan Haskins. Thank you. Let's see here. Pick 2, JCM, DK, and Devontae Smith. As of right now, JCM has to play. As for DK and Devontae, I'd probably just assume that AJ Brown's going to have a bigger week here. So I just go with these 2. Squeezed Duke 4 says, in a full PPR, should I pick up Barner? Should I drop Andrews? Also have to drop. Considering Andrews is not going to be of value until week 8, until the Ravens come back from bye week, I don't mind the swap because you'll be starting Barner at least this week, and probably nobody's going to pick up Andrews. So in the meanwhile, I'm okay with that. Drop Spears for Kendre. I'm okay with that as well. Jacket says in a 12-team half PPR, trade Swift / Montgomery and Adams for Jacobs. Yeah, if you can, get rid of Swift and Adams for Jacobs, I'm okay with that. Thank you. Omar the Grouch says, to previous question, drop Godwin or Jameson for Algier. Let me look at your running back depth. You currently have JT, Henry, Bijan. Yeah, in the event in which you are getting the return of Algier, I'm okay making a move of this caliber. I think Godwin's going to get better in due time. Again, he's only just kind of ramping up. But if you were going to move somebody, the thing is with Jameson, I'm never going to play him in your lineup. Like, there's just too much consistency to where he doesn't provide it because he doesn't have enough targets. So Jameson would be the guy just to ensure Jameson would be theoretically the drop in order to ensure that if anything happens to Bijan, you have the handcuff. Thank you. All right, we'll continue on. We had a question from here. We had Cutie Miles who says, got offered Pickens and JCM for Nico. Interesting. I actually don't mind that. I have London, Addison, and Tedero. McMillan, wide receiver, Hampton, Pollard, and Henderson at running back. What do you think? I don't mind the trade. I'll take that. That works for me. Emily Doyle sends in a question. Says, also accepted my first trade ever. I got Devontae Smith and Trey Tucker for BTJ. It took me forever to decide, but I missed the live, so I couldn't ask. Thoughts? I mean, Trey Tucker, in my mind, is kind of short-term value until Brock Bowers becomes relevant again. So to which I would say that this is probably just a one-for-one trade. Again, with what BTJ has provided thus far this season, he's probably got equivalent value to Devontae Smith, so I'm okay with the trade. Especially if you need a wide receiver depth in the short term. Shannon, what's up, my man? Says I've lost Bucky and Hampton. I'm 4-1, and my team consists of Spears, Henry. Wide receivers are St. Brown, Adunze, Sutton, McMillan, Rice, Pearsall, Waller, Nix, May, and Fields. Adunze plus Sutton / McMillan to get a running back. If you were going to make a trade of this caliber, if you were going to move it, let's say you move the Dunze and McMillan to get a running back, I better get a top 5 running back in return. If I'm going to move Sutton and McMillan, I'd legitimately better get a top 12 running back in return. Like, what I mean by top 12 running back, if I'm moving Sutton and McMillan, I better get one of those top 11 running backs. Forget it. I want one of those top 10 running backs. That's what I won't settle for anything less than that. To which I'm giving away Sutton, who just took on Quinyon Mitchell and went for 99 yards, and every other week has had a tutty. Like, there's no way in a PPR I'm giving up Sutton, who as of thus far this season, in terms of just, if we want to talk about equivalent value, Cortland Sutton thus far this season is wide receiver 10 with a 16.1 fantasy point per game average, to which if I'm going to equate him to a running back of that very similar stature of 16 points per game, that's Saquon Barkley. That's Kyron Williams. I mean, please and thank you. That's what especially when I'm giving Tet as well. Like, I better be getting back equivalent value for sure. So yeah, if you can, go for it. Rel7 sends in a question, says PPR, I have Jawan starting at tight end. Okay, we got to move him off the roster. There's Njoku, Ingram, Tongs, and Barner on the waivers. Yeah, we'll take Njoku there. In the event in which we can't get him, we'll take Ingram because they take on... Ingram's been solid, but yeah, let's try to get Njoku for now. I don't want to commit too hard to Ingram as of right now. Should I drop Fab to start over Jawan this week? Kittle's on the IR. Yeah, I would. Look, I don't mind the idea of dropping Fab, primarily because the report from last week is that Kittle's not going to return for another couple weeks here. So you could drop some Fab on Njoku. In the event in which you do not get him, just wait and put $0 bids on the rest of these guys. And then and then just kind of figure it out from there. Because these guys have decent options or are decent kind of fill-ins until the return of Kittle. And Kittle doesn't have a bye until week 14, so you'll be fine. To not have a second tight end that's, like weekly. Jay says in a PPR, my Sutton and Walker for Collins. I think you're giving up too much. If you want to take the deal, you can. But I think it's too much. Collins has got to be like way better than he currently is within this current offense. Like, I understand he's coming off a week in which they blew out the opposing team. And there's just kind of like less value to be had when you're coming away with a 35-point lead at halftime. Like, I get it. But he's going to have to get himself, like, legitimately, the last 2 weeks have consisted of 6 and 5 targets. I think you're giving up too much in this circumstance. Woodchuck's Fantasy Football says, I'm 4-1 in a non-PPR. Do I pick up Tracy, Vidal, or Haskins? Haskins is my answer. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Sergio says, in a 10-team half PPR, I traded Bowers and Dobbins for Hampton and Henderson. Okay. Bowers and Dobbins for Hampton and Henderson. I don't understand the trade per se, but let's look at the rest of your roster. I have Barkley, Hall, and Scat. Okay, so I understand it now. I have Mason Taylor, Nakua, JSN, and Dunze. Yeah, so basically you're just investing in late term. Once Hampton comes back in week... let me see when the Chargers have a bye week here. So the Chargers have a week 12 bye. So under the assumption that he misses week 6, 7, 8, 9, then he'll be back 10, 11. So then you'll miss him on 12. And then 13, there's no buys. 14, there's no buy. Okay, so you'll get basically 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks out of him. And then... I mean, again, I guess you can, and then you're just hoping on the fantasy playoff potential. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I mean, again, I think technically speaking, you gave up a lot because Bowers, if he gets back to full form and Henderson doesn't end up waking up because the coaching staff doesn't like him, it's going to be rough because Dobbins is looking legit right now. So, but again, I mean, you can justify the move because of this, but man, losing, shoot. I think this just would have been enough. Dobbins for Hampton would have been enough. I don't know about that Bowers part. But again, if Hendo ends up working out for you, I think that's the difference maker there. It has to pay, it has to pan out. Daniel Barnes says in a full PPR, do I drop Jalen Warren or Hendo? Yeah, I would drop Hendo before I drop Jalen Warren any day of the week. I don't want to drop either, but if I have to, that Hendo's gone. Unholy sends in a question, says 2 parts. Please grade my trades. I traded Olave and Hunter Henry for Pollard. Okay. Then Jordan Mason, for Kittle. Same league. Next, start Mason Taylor over Io Manor. Yeah. Yeah, it's not even close. Mason Taylor will get the start there. So in this circumstance, to where we're moving Olave and Henry for Pollard, I'm okay with it. Spears is going to get a more expanded role going forward. My only question just becomes a matter of if you're moving Pollard and you're moving Jordan Mason off of roster, you must have stacked running back situations. So if you do, then I'm okay with this. You're trading it for Pollard. So you do not have running back depth. To which, yeah, you're getting Pollard in this case, but then you're shipping Mason for Kittle. Mason versus Pollard, rest of season value. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. I don't love it. Mainly because, again, I'm afraid of Spears, but that's something that we'll figure out in the future. I'm just as afraid of Aaron Jones as I am of Spears, so that's fine. But I do believe that the offense that the Vikings are associated with there's just more threats there, so Pollard becomes a little bit of a better option. I'm okay with the trade. It's fine. Benjamin says in a question, says I'm 2-3 in a 12-team PPR. Quarterback is this. Okay, so this is the roster. Any recommendations you're asking? Okay, so let's see what we have here, Benjamin. So Mahomes obviously is looking great. CeeDee Lamb's great. Garrett Wilson's fantastic. In terms of running back, you have Breece, Kyron. You have some kind of dissolving options going forward. You have Bowers. You have Mason Taylor. Ultimately, once CeeDee Lamb becomes healthy, my only recommendation at this point would be we need to try to improve our other wide receiver because we can't afford to start Ayuk because he's obviously on the IR still. And Coker may not even play this week. So I don't know who your other wide receiver option is. If we need to make a move to where we're moving Rico or Carter to try to get one of these guys in return, and try to get some sort of wide receiver semblance of help right now, let's probably explore that. That's the only recommendation I can make. Otherwise, Mahomes is not moving off roster. Neither is Wilson, CD, Kyron, or Breece. And neither is Bowers or Taylor. So these two, though, that are dissolving pieces, I would try to move Rico first before Carter, because Carter will disappear in 5 weeks rather than Rico in 2. Rogo says, I'm using waiver wire number 3 on tight end, kicker, or wait till clearance. Who would you be going after theoretically in this position? Your tight end currently sits as Fannin. If someone like Darren Waller is available, then yeah, I would. I'd let it rip. Speak Your Piece sends in a question, says, do I start AJ Brown or BTJ? It's got to be AJ Brown against the Giants. Has to be. How do we feel about trading Saquon for Achane? I don't love it. I would rather Saquon go off on Thursday against the Giants before I make a move of him. Fendi says in a question, says questions in the chat. Thank you, Fendi. I appreciate it. I don't see a question, but hopefully it'll update in just a moment, and then we'll go ahead and take care of that. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see anything, Fendi. Maybe I can go to the live chat myself and I can find that. Until then, Sven sends in a question, says, I'm currently 2-3. Thank you again, Sven. Very generous of you. Says, in a 12-team half PPR league, I got an offer to receive A.J. Brown, Pickens, and Walker for Adams and Hampton. Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't take this deal. I think just the justification of A.J. Brown, Pickens is enough for me to be very confident in a move like this. Rest of my team consists of Josh Allen, Gibbs, Achane. Yeah, I make this move. I would rather have A.J. Brown, Pickens, and Walker. With Hampton going out with an injury, I think this provides enough depth and enough value going forward to which your 2 and 3 roster will flip here in no time. And again, yes, you're losing Hampton, but you're bringing in enough semblance of depth at running back with Walker and I mean, legitimately better players than Adams rest of the season. I'd rather have A.J. Brown and Pickens rest of the season than Adams. So, yeah, let's ride. Let's do it. I mean, shoot, you have a really good team, man. You have London also on top of that. Like, fuck yeah, let's make that move. All right, Fendi, where you at, my man? Fendi says, I got offered London for ETN and Diggs. So they want to give you London and they want to take away ETN and Diggs. My wide receivers are Diggs, Evans, Rice, McLaurin. Running backs are Achane, Warren, ETN, Pollard, Dowdle. I probably wouldn't make that move. In terms of like long-term depth, like I think ETN for London is a fair 1-for-1. I think giving Diggs as well is just too much at that point, legitimately. So no, I wouldn't make that move. If they want to take Pollard and Diggs off your hands, if they want to take Pollard, Dowdle, and Diggs off your hands, sounds good. They want to take Warren and Diggs off your hands, that's good. But I think ETN's too much, it's too rich for me in terms of the value that you are getting in return in comparison to what you are giving in the long-term kind of approach. I mean, I understand that Diggs is not going to be of like much value come the return of McLaurin and Rice and Evans, but in the short term, until these three actually are healthy and on roster and actually contributing at a consistent enough basis, because even when Evans and McLaurin return, they're still going to be hobbled a little bit, right? They're not going to be 100% of themselves, to which I would probably revisit a trade of this caliber later on. I'm not really too interested in making that move right now. All right, a couple more questions, then we're going to close out today's live stream. I do appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel with all the help you guys have gone ahead and sent in my direction. Let's see here. Breezy says, in a 12-team 3-2 record, PPR, Lamar, Sam Darnold, Travion Henderson, Charbonnet, White, Corum, Davis Lamb, Rome, Egbuka, Ricky, Downs, Bowers, Waller. I need a running back for my league doesn't trade. Yeah, look, if you need a running back and your league is not going to be actively trading, you are hitting up the waiver wire, and that's the way that you're going to have to address the positional need. Obviously, I think there's going to be options or opportunities to pick up guys like Hassan Haskins tonight, to which you can go ahead and explore that. But if nobody's trading in your league, the only thing or the only reason they would ever trade is due to desperation, to which maybe someone in your league is incredibly desperate for a tight end, to which they'd be willing to take Waller off your hands, and then you can go and also hit up the waiver and go pick up somebody like a Theo Johnson or a Mason Taylor to suffice into the return of Bowers. That could also work, but unless desperation knocks someone upside the head, you have to hit up the waiver and you have to pick up any of the players that I mentioned on yesterday's waiver wire episode: Hassan Haskins, Kenneth Gainwell, Tyler Algier, and just hope that they can kind of suffice in the short term, under the assumption that White doesn't get more looks if Bucky doesn't miss time. Otherwise, like, White and Sharp are your guys going forward. TanFam says, drop Stevenson for Haskins. I don't have Omari on Hampton. With Antonio Gibson going down with injury, I feel like Stevenson has more long-term value, so I don't think I make this move. Like, in terms of the long-term value that Stevenson presents rest of season, it's greater than the 4-week term that Haskins will be providing, so I'd rather just keep Stevenson there. Daniel Hernandez says, Jamar Chase saved with Flacco. I don't know if he's saved, but I think he's not going to have as many bust games. That's what I'll say for now. I don't think he'll have as many poor performances because Joe Flacco is going to be under a lot of pressure, but at least he's a 6'9" quarterback that could just sling it. And he doesn't care if he throws 3 picks, but at least he'll throw 3 touchdowns and keep them in games, unlike, Browning prior to this most recent week. So, I mean, we all know what's going to happen with Flacco. He's going to show up. He's going to play one good game. Then it's going to go downhill really quickly. I don't know why they didn't go after Jameis if they wanted the same kind of exposure. But at least Jameis kind of at least leads to more victories. But we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Jamar and Higgins and Chase Brown are saved. Should I sell? I don't think you need to sell as of right now. I mean, again, under the assumption of you're potentially getting back someone of a top tier caliber. If you're going to get back an Amon-Ra, I'm okay with that sell. You know, like if you're going to get back someone at the top tier of the conversation, a top 3 wide receiver, sure. If not, then no. Also, is Kincaid holding if I have Kraft? Is Kincaid worth holding is what you said. Is he worth holding? Yeah, why not? Because he continues to play well, so I don't know why you wouldn't just continue to hold on to him. If you're going to trade him, trade him. Otherwise, hold it because you never know. Injuries are always a possibility. Matthew sends in a question, says in a 12-team PPR, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end, 1 running back, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league. We have Fields, Dart, Lamb, Rice, Adams, Rome, Tet, Pearsall, Achane, Etienne, Javonte, Sharbs, McBride. Offered Amon-Ra and Stafford for Javonte and Adams. Interesting trade. I mean, ultimately, I don't want Stafford. I would rather have Fields rest the season. So really, the value of what you are getting for Stafford is not relevant in my mind, unless you're playing in a 2 QB league, to which I don't believe you are, based on the fact that you did not mention that. So in this circumstance, no, I'd just rather have Javonte and Adams in the long term, unless they want to go ahead and take away Stafford off this trade, and make it a little bit more suitable, more pleasant. I don't think it's necessary. You do have enough depth to make a trade of this caliber. I just don't know if it's necessary. Like, I mean, no, I wouldn't make this trade. I wouldn't. I'd keep what you have. JK sends in a question, says flex, full PPR, Golden, Pollard, or Kamara. I'd honestly rather just play Pollard at the moment. Rest of your Kamara or Devontae Smith. Depends if Kamara gets traded. That's really just a question of as of right now. I'd lean towards the potential which Kamara could probably bounce back, but unless a trade occurs, like it's looking like a rough situation. Rogo says Waller's gone, Mason Taylor, Freiermuth, Ingram, Okonkwo, Komet. Yeah, it's going to be Mason Taylor in this circumstance. So to answer your question, are we ripping the number 3 on him to replace Fannin in this circumstance? I would. He's going to be top 12 rest of the season. Fuck it. Let's ball. All right, guys. I think that's pretty much what we're going to call it. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Again, this live stream has been about, let's see, how long have we been rolling for here? Just about an hour 50, so almost 2 hours. That's typically how we like to do it on Tuesdays. Again, quick reminder, again, tomorrow I will be back live streaming as well, and hopefully we can continue to answer questions and all that kind of jazz. Again, if you guys want your individual questions specifically answered by me, yours truly, you can check out the Patreon. There's a link down in the description where you can sign up via this, the monthly subscription. You can ask me questions through the Patreon Messenger. Just got to click the envelope button in the top right corner, and you'll send me direct messages. You can also connect with me on Discord through Patreon. And additionally, of course, you'll get rankings every Thursday and Sunday for the remainder of the season at all positions. Again, if you're not interested in potentially signing up via Betr to get those rankings, which again, you can get every single Sunday morning, you can always check out the Patreon if that is something of interest. As you guys know, via the Betr sign up, again, you have to be eligible via one of these states. And of course, check out, or specifically, click on the link down in the description because you have to use code Andrew. Make sure you accomplish that. On top of it, you have to make a first-time deposit minimum of 10, and of course, make a first-time play minimum of 1. I guess this is technically the cheaper of the 2 alternatives in terms of getting the rankings. But ultimately, if you wanted to potentially get to ask me questions, the way in which it would be done would be via Patreon. Okay, so we had a couple more questions that I see here just kind of dangling within the overall chat. Judkins or Scat? I mean, ultimately, I have them back-to-back this week. I could go either way. Would you release Hawkinson or Ertz for Mason Taylor? Yeah, I would get rid of Ertz at that point. Do I drop Jawan to get Barner if I can snag Theo first? If you can snag Theo, that would be the preferred. But in the event in which you can drop Jawan to pick up Barner, I don't think it's necessary at that point because you're just going to roll with Theo going forward. All right, y'all. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cue the double helix. I'm going to go work on my wide receiver rankings for tomorrow. And that's pretty much it. Have a great rest of your night. Good luck with your upcoming waiver wire. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace. Patrick, I see that you did send in a question. Patrick, hello. Patrick, where is your question? Let's see, channel activity. Patrick, if you can do me a favor, type in your question. That'd be greatly appreciated. Once you go ahead and do so, then I can go ahead and answer it. Thank you. I'm going to pause the music for a second. Patrick said, I already turned off the camera, already unplugged it. You came in at the very last second. Says, in a full PPR, do I trade my Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison for Devontae Adams, Diggs, and Addison? I'm 1-4. Wilson is playing Denver this week. Other receivers are Pittman, Olave, Godwin, and Judy. Am I making that? Honestly, I'm not making that trade. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison. I think Garrett Wilson's enough, even in this tough matchup, to be able to put together a semblance of a solid performance. So, no, I'm not making that trade. I'd keep what you have. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night, guys. Peace.